The rain tapped softly against the windows of Evergreen Auto Dealership, where the fluorescent lights hummed and the scent of stale coffee clung to the waiting area. Behind the polished counters and corporate posters, tension lived in the corners, unseen but present. Margaret Ellis, 62, stood quietly near the glass entrance, her coat damp from the drizzle, clutching a manila folder. A canvas tote hung from her shoulder. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled into a neat bun, her slacks clean but a decade out of fashion. She looked like someone who had raised a family, balanced checkbooks, and maybe taught Sunday school. Not someone applying for a sales job. The receptionist barely glanced up. "Yes, I have an interview," Margaret said politely. "Sales associate. I submitted my application. Online. A gum pop. Oh, right. 1 second." She didn't look again, just slid a clipboard across the counter. Across the showroom, Trevor leaned against a car hood, smirking. "New applicant?" The receptionist shrugged. "Probably just lonely. Old folks like to keep busy." Trevor chuckled and whispered something to Blake, the manager, who laughed louder than necessary. Margaret heard every word, but she said nothing. What no one here knew. 2 weeks earlier, Margaret had purchased controlling interest in Evergreen's parent company through a private equity firm she had quietly advised for years. After a decorated career in auto retail strategy, she had been pushed out of her last job with phrases like, "Time to let new blood lead." She hadn't retired. She had simply reloaded. And now she was undercover. This branch, like many others, had been bleeding cash, losing employees and generating complaints. But numbers only told part of the story. Margaret wanted to see the rot up close, so she applied using her maiden name. No titles, no past, just another older lady trying to re-enter the workforce. Her first few days were quiet. No training, just vague instructions to shadow Trevor. Trevor, 30, flashy suit, flashy smile, treated her like a nuisance. He routinely cut in when she approached customers and once asked if she knew how to use the printer. "Don't worry," he said, patting her shoulder. "You're more the friendly grandma type. Customers love that." She laughed lightly. "We'll see." She started keeping notes. Every snide comment, every ignored customer, every time Danielle, the front desk associate, was told to smile more or cover for Blake. One afternoon, a black couple in their 60s came in, looking to trade in their sedan. Trevor looked them up and down. "They always just browse," he muttered. Margaret approached them instead. 2 hours later, they drove off in a new SUV, financed and approved. Trevor avoided her all day. In the break room, Danielle opened up after Margaret shared half a sandwich. "I've been here 5 years, Danielle said. "I do 3 jobs, but they won't give me a raise, because I miss work when my son's in the hospital. He has epilepsy, but they don't care." Margaret listened carefully. "You deserve better." Danielle smiled faintly. "Yeah, but people like me, we don't get better. We just get replaced." Blake, the manager, ran things with a smugness only mediocrity can afford. He made inappropriate jokes, had favorites, and enforced rules selectively. "Speed is everything," he told Margaret. "You're thoughtful, but this isn't a place for slowing down." On Friday afternoon, she was summoned to his office. "We appreciate you applying," he said, not making eye contact. "But it's not the right fit." "Why not?" He shifted. "This job takes energy, flexibility, hunger, and, well, I'm too old." He coughed. "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant." She stood. "Thanks for your time, Blake. I'll see myself out." 3 weeks later, she returned. Same woman, but different energy. Tailored navy suit, leather heels, subtle diamond studs, hair sleek, posture tall. She walked through the glass doors like she owned the place because now she did. The receptionist blinked. "Can I help?" "Why?" Margaret kept walking. Blake stepped out of his office, turned ghost white. "Ms. Ellis." She extended a hand. "Good to see you again." He stared at the two men beside her, corporate auditors with clipboards. "I believe you remember that afternoon." Margaret gathered the staff in the showroom. "My name is Margaret Ellis. I applied here weeks ago. You treated me like I didn't belong, like I was invisible. But I saw everything." She scanned the room, and what I saw was good people, overlooked, and bad behavior, overprotected. She turned to Danielle. "You're promoted." To Rosa, the tech who stayed late while others joked about her. "You're getting a team." And to Trevor, who'd crept back inside, half-dressed. "You're dismissed." By nightfall, the dealership had a new sign posted on the doors, under new ownership. But Margaret wasn't smiling, because in her briefcase sat a folder. 12 other branches, dozens of employee complaints, fake fees, ghost consultants, corruption far bigger than Trevor or Blake. And one name that hadn't crossed her desk in years, Charles B. Hutchins. Our last, he was still pulling strings. And Margaret? She was just getting started. "Conversation," she said. "You fired me. Today, I'm firing you." The boardroom at Evergreen Corporate smelled like fear and lemon-scented furniture polish. 12 executives sat around a long glass table, staring at the stack of folders Margaret Ellis had just dropped at its center. No one reached for them. "These are internal audit results from all 12 branches," she said, calm, crisp, ruthless. "I had mystery shoppers visit each location. I reviewed every HR complaint, formal and misplaced. I reviewed payroll, time card edits, sales structuring, and even service scheduling." She clicked a remote. The wall screen behind her came to life. Slide after slide, screenshots of emails, Slack threads, surveillance stills, text messages from managers joking about dead weight hires, and hidden consulting fees from a shell company named Pine Point Strategies. "I was fired from this company 3 weeks ago," she said. "Now I own it." She stared them all down. "And I'm done being quiet." The fallout was swift. 8 executives were terminated. 3 others resigned before noon. Margaret made no speech, no grand announcement. She simply handed out folders one by one. To Danielle, Regional Customer Experience Manager. To Rosa, Technical Operations Lead. To Henry, the janitor who used his lunch breaks to fix the vending machine and restock the waiting room, Facilities Manager. All branches. People cried. Margaret didn't, because she knew the hardest part hadn't started yet. That night, her phone buzzed. Unknown sender. Check Pine Point. Evergreen wasn't the only target. Hutchins isn't finished. Attached was a spreadsheet. Dozens of fake vendor invoices, all routed through Pine Point, all tied to Charles B. Hutchins, the man who forced Margaret into retirement 5 years earlier. With a handshake and a hollow smile. The man who told her, "Let the next generation take it from here." The man who now appeared to be embezzling millions using the very company she now ran. The next morning, Margaret called her lawyer. Pull every invoice with Pine Point's name on it. And every consulting agreement signed by Blake. Or Greeley. Her voice never raised. It didn't have to. By Monday, she had a list. 14 dealerships. 3 shell companies. One name connecting them all. Hutchins. But he'd covered his tracks well. The money trail was slippery, washed through subcontractors, digital advertising fees, and even inflated janitorial services. She needed leverage. And that meant confrontation. The elevator dinged outside the 48th floor of the Hutchins Group, his post-retirement strategic advisory firm. The receptionist gave her a stiff smile. "Do you have an appointment?" Margaret returned it. "No, but I have history." Inside a glass-walled office, Hutchins looked up mid-call and froze. "Margaret." She sat across from him without being invited. "I'd say it's good to see you," she said. "But I don't like lying." He set down the phone. "I heard you invested. Didn't expect to see you in the trenches. You told me to step aside. Let the new blood lead." He chuckled. "And yet, here you are." She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the desk. His smile vanished. These are copies of every payout Pine Point received since 2019. Most are duplicated across dealerships, same services, same rates, different vendors. You're reaching. Margaret stared. I'm subpoenaing everything next week. Unless you want to talk. He swallowed. You can't win this. She leaned in. I already did. I just haven't finished yet. Back at Evergreen headquarters, Margaret hosted a town hall. Not in a boardroom, but in the service garage. Coffee and folding chairs. Technicians and sales reps. Admins and cleaning staff. I'm not here to give you another corporate promise, she said. I'm here to rebuild trust. She paused. You'll see changes in the next 30 days. Some roles will shift. Some people will leave. But everyone who stays will stay because they earn it. And because they care. Rosa raised her hand. What if we're not sure we belong? Margaret smiled. Neither was I. And look where I'm sitting now. The next 4 weeks were a whirlwind. Margaret restructured HR. Eliminated fees buried in fine print. Reinstated wrongfully fired employees. One location, run by a manager known for mocking accents, was completely restaffed. Sales dipped slightly. The grandma CEO who fired half her staff then made record profits. Justice in the showroom. How one woman changed the game. But Margaret didn't care about headlines. She cared about impact. One night, she visited the original dealership, the one where she was humiliated on day one. Danielle was closing up. You came back, she said, surprised. I like to visit the roots, Margaret replied, to remind myself how far we can grow. Danielle hesitated. Did you ever think you'd be doing all this at your age? Margaret paused. Every day. And every day, I keep doing it anyway. They both laughed. Then Danielle asked, So, is it over? The fight. Margaret looked at the empty parking lot. The silent office. The glow of headlights fading into night. No, she said quietly. Not yet. A week later, federal agents raided the Hutchins Group office. Margaret didn't smile when she saw the footage. She just nodded once. The following Monday, she received an unmarked envelope in her office. Inside, a single slip of paper. A typed message. You may have won the battle, but I taught you this war. There was no signature, but she recognized the voice between the lines. Margaret folded the paper, slid it into her drawer, and locked it without a word. Then she looked out the window at the staff pulling into the lot. Young, old, brown, white, tired, hopeful. Real people. Later that afternoon, a young woman, mid-50s, resume in hand, walked through the dealership doors. She wore no makeup, dressed plainly, held herself with hesitation. The receptionist glanced up, wary. Margaret happened to be nearby. She stepped forward and smiled. Hi there, she said. First time here? The woman nodded. I'm here about the sales job. I don't have much experience, but I worked retail back when my kids were young. Margaret extended her hand. We believe in second chances here. The woman's eyes welled up. So do I. That evening, Margaret sat in her corner office. Lights low, feet up, tea in hand. Outside, the showroom lights cast soft reflections on the windows. She opened the last folder on her desk, a blank onboarding packet. She penciled in a name, then paused, and smiled. Some people built legacies by stepping on others. She was going to build one by lifting them up. And this time, no one would silence her. If the story moved you, pay it forward. Like, comment, subscribe. Justice doesn't shout. It shows up.